Time next for the business news with Stephen Carroll. Good afternoon, Stephen.
Hi, Delano.
You're starting out with a look at the markets, investors keeping an eye out on what's happening in Georgia.
Yeah, they certainly are. And we're seeing that play out mainly on the currency markets. The dollar trading weaker as we await the outcome of that final Senate seat in Georgia. Investors weighing the potential winners and losers if the Democrats do manage to take control of the Senate. On one hand, a Democratic victory might mean higher taxes and more regulation, so bigger budget deficits, which would weigh on the dollar. But it could also lead to a bigger stimulus package for the American economy, and that's something the stock markets like and could see stock markets being boosted as a result. If we take a look at how trading is proceeding in Europe today, we're seeing gains across the board. London's FTSE 100 up over 2.5%, gains too in Paris and in Frankfurt, despite concerns about the pandemic. But news that we're just getting here that the EU's Medicines Agency is giving approval to the Moderna vaccine will, of course, give more good news to those who are hoping for a faster rollout and a more extensive rollout of vaccines here in the European Union. Well, here in France, the tyre maker Michelin has announced it's cutting more than 2,000 jobs. The company says the plan won't see any forced layoffs, with staff numbers being reduced over the next 3 years. It'll cut Michelin's workforce by around 10%. The company's chairman saying the restructuring isn't due to the pandemic, but a need to make the business more competitive. Restaurants in France have been closed since the end of October due to COVID-19 restrictions, and it looks unlikely that they'll be allowed to reopen anytime soon. The closure orders are a huge blow to an industry which had already been shut down during the first lockdown in spring. There are still some places, though, that you can sit down and be served a meal under special circumstances. Camille Nedelec explains.
An open restaurant serving clients dining indoors. Once an everyday occurrence, but now an exception to the rule. An exception made thanks to a new initiative that has turned this business into a work canteen for builders.
C'est une chance de manger au chaud et à table. Ça nous change de manger dans le camion avec des plats emportés.
But the owners say even with this new service, they're still only earning 30% of their usual revenue, but that it's better than nothing.
C'est vraiment sympa de voir du monde dans le resto, de les retrouver, de discuter.
This restaurant, meanwhile, has been given permission to cater to truckers who have to prove they are who they say they are before they're allowed to order. 2/3 of staff are still on furlough and the kitchen prepares just 100 meals a day. Pre-pandemic, they were serving 280 a day.
On va dire que ça nous permet de terminer à quasiment zéro, donc au moins on ne perd pas d'argent. C'est pas bien, c'est moins pire.
The truckers can also have a hot shower after their unions fought to keep restaurants like these open.
Au premier confinement, ça a été pire que ça, parce qu'on ne prenait pas de douche, on ne voyait personne. On était des fois 3-4 jours sans se laver.
250 restaurants are open to truckers across France, but the industry says that's not enough to cater to hauliers around the country.
The price of the digital currency Bitcoin hit another record high in trading earlier today. It rose above $35,000 for the second time in a week. The price of Bitcoin has been rising for several months now, just sparked by its increasing recognition by major payment platforms like PayPal. According to the website CoinDesk, it's fallen slightly from that peak, but still trading up at just under 10% today. We've seen swings of up to 20% in a day, up and down on Bitcoin in recent days. Remember, this is a speculative asset that's driven by what value investors think it has. So that means plenty of potential for ups and downs. In the United States, Donald Trump has lashed out at Chinese technology companies again. The outgoing US president has moved to ban transactions on 8 Chinese payment apps, including the hugely popular Alipay and WeChat. It's the latest in a series of executive orders targeting China in the dying days of Donald Trump's administration. The order says that the apps threaten the national security and economy of the United States. Won't come into force for 45 days, though, after Donald Trump is due to leave office. Turning to Cuba next, where the overhaul of the country's currency is continuing to cause problems for people there. The unification of the island's 2 currencies come into effect on January 1st. People have been complaining of price rises and difficulty in exchanging their old money.
Almost a week into Cuba's financial reform, one thing at least hasn't changed: the queues. People here are waiting to withdraw the now single national currency, the Cuban peso, which until this year had only been used within the country itself and is worth 24 pesos to the dollar. The defunct Cuban convertible peso, meanwhile, was used mostly for investments and businesses and pegged 1-to-1 to the dollar.
Cuando usted compraba en un CUC, ese CUC ahora se convierte por 24 pesos, por lo tanto se incrementa la masa de efectivo que van a tener los establecimientos, y hay establecimientos que no tienen toda la seguridad ni la capacidad para acumular la cantidad de efectivo que se genera por la venta y poder acumularlo.
Many people had held on to their convertible pesos after official reports that they could carry on using them for 6 months. But shops have since refused to accept them. Those with savings in the old currency have seen them drop in value, and electricity bills have increased 5-fold. The government has tried to offset this by boosting pensions and the minimum wage.
Los precios aumentaron incluso para algunos artículos que no estaban subsidiados, aumentaron igual. No hablemos de los de primera necesidad, estamos hablando de otras cosas que no tenían por qué haberla subido tanto.
Hay que adaptarse a que ya no exista la otra moneda, también es un problema de mentalidad.
Havana is hoping that while painful in the short term, the reform will help to address the island's economic crisis by boosting exports and making it more attractive to foreign investors.
Finally, for me, new figures on executive pay in the UK have produced some stark comparisons. Chief executives of the UK's biggest companies have made more by the end of today than the typical British worker will make all year. That's according to the latest study from the think tank, the High Pay Institute. Top CEOs now earn around 120 times the pay of a median worker. The typical boss of a FTSE 100 listed company earned just under €4 million in 2019, while the median pay for full-time workers in the UK is the equivalent of just under €35,000.
They've made more by the end of
so
the day.
34 hours
They've
of
not
work.
even worked a week in 2021?
No, they've worked 3 very long days. That's the principle.
And to be the 1%. Stephen, thank you very much for that. Stephen Carroll there with today's business news.